Hey class, this is the lab for the character design assignment. We're gonna look at some different inspiration and talk a little bit about some different concepts and then work on making a few sketches for different character designs. One thing that I want to emphasize is that you can spend as much time as you want creating different characters, but for the assignment, what we want is 3 variations of the same character. So those variations can be in different ways, like different colors, different shapes or sizes with different attributes like different clothes, however you want to do those variations. But we should be thinking about the main character for a game here. And we want to try doing variations of that character because that's a good way as a designer and an artist to work through our ideas. If we just choose the first idea that we come up with, then it may not be the best idea that we can come up with. So when we do revisions and variations, we start to see what works, what we could change, and think more about how to make our character more interesting. So for this lab, we'll be looking at inspiration first. Where do we find inspiration and how do we incorporate it into our work? Then we'll be doing some sketching. And then we're just going to post 3 of those sketches, at least 3. You can post as many as you like, but at least 3 of those sketches on the Open Lab. I also want you to spend a little bit of time when you make the post explaining the choices that you made for the character. A few sentences for each sketch that you put in there, what you changed and what you thought worked and what didn't work. Same thing for the inspiration. Just write a couple sentences about why you found it inspiring and what you liked about it. You may want to start by looking or reviewing the character design notes. Hopefully you saw the lecture. If not, you can watch the video or review the notes. And even if you saw it, you might want to review the notes real quick. So that's down here. Just go through and, take a look at all these different characters from these different games, some of these different concepts. I also have some links to a couple other things here that I find inspiring. So that's the kind of thing that could be inspiration for you. You also might have other resources that you think are inspiring. So we'll take a look at those and then we'll get started with sketching. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is look for some inspiration. A great way to do this is look at characters in games that you admire. A game that I really enjoyed playing last year was The Outer Wilds. The characters are very unique. Each character has different attributes that correspond with their role in the game and the story that you uncover as you play the game. You can see the inspiration that went into these characters at different moments in the game. As we talked about in the lecture, good characters design is a synthesis of form and function. So the design of the character should match their role in the game and their personality and the functionality that they might have, whether it's playing music like a lot of the characters in Outer Wilds do, or being an astronaut, as many of the characters are. So the components of their design tell us something about how they work in the game world. So looking at characters from other games is good. We can look at characters from other sources like comics or TV or movies as well. Notice what makes the characters unique versus what makes them universal. So let's do some sketches. I'm going to be using Piskel just to be consistent with the other videos in the class. Feel free to use Photoshop or Procreate or pen and pencil on paper, whatever it is that you're most comfortable sketching in, as long as you can post it on the Open Lab. We're not going to use these sketches in the game, so we don't really have to worry about the format as much. If you are using Piskel, you may want to change the dimensions of the default canvas. Since it's usually 32 by 32, that's not a lot of space to try out different styles and drawings. So you might want to make it a little bigger. I'm going to make mine 256 by 256 just to give myself some more space to work. Feel free to just try out a bunch of different stuff here. Just keep in mind, as I mentioned, eventually what we want is 3 variations of one character. That can be interpreted broadly, but what I don't want is 3 different characters. You can design 3 different characters, but eventually I want you to choose one and make a few variations. Those variations can be color or shape or size or what they're wearing. Whatever you want to change is fine, but I want there to be 3 different variations. Another inspiration for me is this blog on character design tips by Tomo Totaro. The artist talks about using different shapes to convey different meaning and designing the characters based on those shapes. I think this is a good way for me to add some different variations by trying a character with a bunch of different basic shapes. The blog also talks about creating strong silhouettes and using color to create these unique characters. And the artist even included some of the inspiration that they used when they were designing the characters. So I used that as inspiration when I started designing my characters. Started out with just a big box and then started drawing around that outline using the onion skin in Piskel. In Piskel, it's really easy to duplicate frames. So making variations is very simple. I can take the art and duplicate it and change the position of the arms or change the length of the legs or the size of the eyes. There's lots of different variations that I can add. It's very quick to just add in a new frame and make some adjustments. And then if it doesn't work, just move on. It's also useful to turn the onion skin off sometimes if you don't want to see everything on the canvas when you're drawing details. For the second shape, I just tried a big circle. I wanted to see how this would change the feeling or the impact that the character has. Adding some details like even a mouth can really change the personality of the character. So that's a good way to try some different variations to give the character different personalities and see how they feel. So I'm trying lots of different variations here. Next, I want to try combining a couple shapes. So I'm going to make a triangle out of straight lines and then put a circle on top to make more of a complicated body. I think that might give my character a little bit more depth than just a single shape. So after I place the shapes, I'm going to trace them again and just kind of go close to the edges, but maybe make it look a little more realistic. So the shapes are just kind of a guide. They don't have to be exactly the same size as the shape. I decided I like this shape the most. So once I had the basic body drawn, I wanted to experiment with adding some different colors to get some different color variation. This is just showing one example of a design process. Your variations and your overall process could look very different from this. This is just a sort of demonstration of how you might go about it. After finding some colors that I liked, I tried adding different details like hair and clothes and different expressions. Before adding detail to your characters, and really before doing this assignment at all, I recommend reading Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, Chapter 2. This whole book is really great, but I assigned this chapter specifically for the character design lesson because it talks about how we relate to different drawings based on how realistic they are. How more simple drawings are more iconic, and therefore it's easy for us to see ourselves in those drawings. They're more universal. Whereas drawings that have more detail tend to remind us of specific things, and so they're less universal, but they may be strong in other ways, like they may evoke specific feelings or emotions or contexts. So for this research assignment, it's optional, but it'll definitely help you in terms of thinking about your design and drawing in general. And I highly recommend checking it out, especially as you're doing your character designs. So now that we've got some designs to share on the Open Lab, we can download a zip of all of the files. So this is an easy way to get every single frame in Piskel onto one separate file. Once we download the zip, we can open it up and take a look at what's inside. You can see all our sketches there. That probably includes some things that we don't need to share, like our circle and square guides that we created. So we can just delete those. And you don't have to share everything, just share what's going to help us understand your design process. I didn't spend as much time on my character as I probably would if I was making a real game, but I just wanted to demonstrate a basic design process for you guys. I would recommend spending a little bit more time on it just to try to make it look a little better, but that's up to you guys how much you want to spend time on this and really make your game and character designs work. You can always redo your character later if you decide you don't like the design, so you don't have to commit to anything we're doing right now. This is just doing some sketches to start thinking about our characters and what we may want to use in the future. So once you get to the Open Lab, it's pretty straightforward. Like any other post, you're going to hit the plus button to start a new post. So we're going to add the category first, of course, which is the character design. The post should start with your inspiration. So just write about what you were inspired by and include some screenshots or links. I'm not going to add mine here, but just keep in mind that you want to add some links or screenshots for your examples. After doing the inspiration, we want to add our images. You can add them one by one, but WordPress also has a gallery feature. So if you have a lot of images and you want to put them in there all at the same time, a good way to do that is to grab all of the files and drag them onto WordPress. And it's going to actually just make a gallery for you. You may like the way that looks, or you might want to have your images each on a separate line. Either way is fine. The gallery will save you a little bit of time, and you can go in and edit the gallery. You can remove images or change the order if you want to. And you can also add captions over the images. Once you've got your images up, you may want to add a little description about your design process or what you're going for, and then you should be ready to publish.